Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're really glad that you're here today for our workshop. Want to just invite you to note our Zoom etiquette before we start. I think by this uh, point, we're all very familiar, or if we're not, this will remind us. Please to stay on mute as our primary one. Please, we love it when folks are on camera unless there's something really distracting going on, in which case we invite you to just go off video. And there are some renaming instructions if you would like to rename yourself. That's welcome. To start off with, just want to introduce myself. My name is Gabe McPhail. I serve as the facilitator for the Southern and Midcoast Resilience Coordinator Collaborative, or SMRCC. And SMRCC is a collaborative of community resilience partnership regional coordinators serving communities in York, Southern Oxford, Cumberland, Sagadahoc, Lincoln, Knox, and Southern Waldo counties. And you can see those regional coordinators here on the screen. Together, we work to host an online resource hub, and we also put out a monthly newsletter and a curated list of grants and learning opportunities. And if that we invite you to subscribe to that newsletter and to receive those lists if you're not already. And before we go over what we're going to touch on today, I just want to acknowledge my co-host Laura Graziano from Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, and Morgan Glynn is our tech person today. So many thanks to the two of them. So really what we're here to do today is look at the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. So we're really hoping that the information that gets shared will help you see how this program can help support your climate resilience infrastructure projects. We're going to look at what are some eligible project types, the different range of funding available, the match requirements, and really to look at what you can expect with this round of funding. And hopefully you'll find some guidance on how you can start shaping your project and doing this ahead of the formal request for applications, or RFA, coming out. So really just to kind of lay a foundation for you. So we're very grateful to be joined today by the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, or MIAF, program administrators Sierra Millay and Lirella Jaen from MDOT. They're going to guide us through the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. After they present, we're going to have time for your questions, and then we'll wrap up by 12 p.m. Throughout the presentation, we invite you to put your questions either in the chat, or you can use the Q&A option, which should be located in your toolbar, your Zoom toolbar. And we invite you to enter questions. We'll collect those and then we'll address them during the Q&A portion of this workshop. So I will be stopping my screen share now, and I'm going to turn it over to Sierra and Lorella. Thank you both.
Great. Thank you so much, Gabe. All right, just to double check, you all can see my presentation. Awesome. Great. So, hi everyone. My name is Sierra Millay. I work at the Maine Department of Transportation as a resource management coordinator. Lirella, who you'll all be hearing from later, her and I both manage 3 grant programs in the environmental office at DOT. We manage the Municipal Stream Crossing Program, the Maine Public Working Waterfront Infrastructure Fund, and the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, as well as many other job duties that we do here. And today we'll just be discussing the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. But if you have other questions about the program, please feel free to reach about other programs, please feel free to reach out to us. Lorella will provide the contact information at the end of this presentation. So I'm just going to discuss some of the previous rounds of funding, and then within each round of funding, I'm going to highlight projects that have been funded through this program, and then we'll switch gears, and Lorella will be discussing the upcoming opportunity. So just before I get into each round that we've had, I wanted to give a little bit of background information. And for many, you all are probably familiar with this, but the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund was established through Maine Won't Wait. So Maine Won't Wait is the state's four-year climate action plan, and it was released in 2020 with an updated version in 2024. The intent of Maine Won't Wait is an action plan that sets forward strategies and goals to eliminate or to emit less carbon, produce energy from renewable sources, and protect our natural resources, communities, and people from the effects of climate change. So one of the recommendations within Maine Won't Wait from 2020 was the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. And in December of 2021, Governor Mills announced the creation of this fund. She had also announced the creation of the Community Resilience Partnership, which is run through Ashley Krulik, now at the Maine Office of Community Affairs, MOCA, but it used to be situated at GOPIF, the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation for the Future. So this program, the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, is administered through the Maine Department of Transportation. Lirella and I administer this program, and it's focused on providing grants to municipalities, tribal governments, and infrastructure districts to build infrastructure that is resilient to the effects of climate change. Since the creation of the fund, there has been 3 rounds of funding and 70 communities awarded. Each round, the funding source has changed. So we've had some rounds with federal, some with state, and this upcoming round is federally funded. So therefore, project eligibility, request for applications slightly looks different each round because there's different stipulations with the funding sources. However, the goal of the program, which is climate resiliency, has stayed the same across the rounds of funding and will continue with this upcoming round through NOAA. So in 2022, Maine DOT awarded nearly 20 million in funds to 12 communities. This map here on the left shows the 12 communities that were awarded. Apologize if it's a little blurry, but Frenchville, Scarborough, Rockland, Berwick, Anson Madison Sanitary District, and Norway have completed their project. This funding does need to be expended by September 30th of 2026. So the remaining projects, which are Blue Hill, Boothbay Harbor Sewer District, Bath, Ogunquit, and a small portion of Kennebunkport will be finishing all of their projects this year before that deadline. So this first round of funding occurred in 2022, and it's supported federally from the COVID-19 relief funds through the American Rescue Plan Act. So the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, as I had said in the previous slide, provides direct funding to municipalities, tribal governments, and infrastructure districts to adapt critical infrastructure and reduce vulnerability to climate impacts. Climate impacts are stressors such as extreme weather, rising sea levels, and flooding. And again, as I'd highlighted, the really intent of this program is climate resiliency, and you'll see that as I talk about the other rounds of funding. So funds in this round were available to support scoping of eligible projects, design, and implementation and construction. Applicants this round could request up to $10,000 to support project scoping, $75,000 to support project design, and $4 million to support construction. Lirella will talk about all those amounts, and as most of you are aware, we just recently released a notice with the maximum grant amounts for design and construction. So this round, the cap was $4 million and $75,000 for design. And funds for this program across all rounds of the program are reimbursement only. I can talk a little bit more about that on my last slide. And then again, this round has to be expended by September 30th of this year. There was a 5% local match requirement, but it could be reduced to 2.5% in this round if a municipality had demonstrated affordability as a hardship. So eligible projects in this round were drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater. And we've received a lot of questions about, what are some example projects that you've funded in the past? So with each round, as I discuss, I'm going to highlight 3 example projects. So the first one I'm going to highlight here is the Anson Madison Sanitary District. Anson-Madison Sanitary District was awarded $842,000 for the replacement of storm drainage system. This project replaced an existing 15-inch storm drain system with a 30-inch storm drain system to increase drainage capacity along Main Street in Madison. The adjacent portion of Main Street and the town office and police station are prone to flooding from increased heavy precipitation and severe storms. There have been several localized flooding occurrences that have caused the urban gas station, a restaurant, and business along specific sections of Main Street to close or delay. As you can kind of see in that top photo, that's Main Street with flooding there at the low point. The town office and police station parking lot is currently connected to the sanitary sewer system. This project, by upgrading it from a 15-inch to a 30-inch, will eliminate flooding of Main Street. So during heavy rain events, traffic could not pass through as the existing storm drain was significantly undersized and only able to handle a 10-year storm event. The new storm drain, 30-inch, can now handle a 100-year storm event. So this project has been completed and was completed, I believe, 2 years ago. And then the next project that I'm going to highlight is Kennebunkport. So the town of Kennebunkport was awarded $2,585,000 to raise Pier Road Causeway, which includes road and subgrade utility infrastructure by 6 feet. So the Pier Road Causeway was built with rubble fill and topped with gravel and asphalt paving. The causeway was built without culverts or bridge abutments that would allow for tidal flow between the adjacent clam flats and Cape Porpoise Harbor. So lack of stormwater infrastructure allows storm surge forces to undermine the road base, water, and wastewater infrastructure located underground below the causeway. The causeway experiences flooding due to existing storm surge, regular king tides, and heavy precipitation events. Flooding threatens to cause failure of water and wastewater infrastructure beneath the road. The Pier Road Causeway was closed on average of six storm events per year and 6 king high tide events per year. So damage to the wastewater main under the causeway would cause discharge of untreated sewage that would threaten water quality and public health while also endangering the use of flats for clam harvesting. So essentially this project consisted of 3 parts. The first part was raising the road and incorporating stormwater management infrastructure. The second was protecting the wastewater pipes, and the third was protecting public water pipes, all under the roadway. So this project has essentially been completed. They just have to finish final paving, which will occur this spring. So that's why we technically can't say it's completed yet, as they just have to finish that and then submit for their final reimbursement. And then the town of Norway was awarded $100,000 for design for improvements to their sewer and stormwater infrastructure. Climate stressors such as increased precipitation can cause sewer overflows and backups within the sewer infrastructure. So Anson-Madison Sanitary District and Kennebunkport were both construction projects, and Norway was just a design project, and that project has been completed. So to move to the next round of funding that we had, this round was in 2024. So as you can see, we did not have a round in 2023. We had one in 2022 and then another round at the beginning of 2024. We had awarded $1.4 million to 19 communities. And we released this again in the beginning of 2024. This round was through state funds only. So that first round was through the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding through U.S. Treasury. This was state funded money. And these funds were to provide direct funding to public entities enrolled in the Community Resilience Partnership program, again, that Ashley Krulik runs at MOCA. So in that first round, it wasn't a requirement, but in this round, it was a requirement to be enrolled in the CRP program. Again, the same intent, it's for municipal, tribal, and infrastructure districts to adapt critical infrastructure to reduce vulnerability to climate change. I promise I won't say that again. And projects that came out of the Community Action Grant of the Community Resilience Partnership, such as those identified through a vulnerability assessment or capital plan, were prioritized for funding. So this round, we really wanted to show the pipeline between the Community Resilience Partnership and those community action grants. And those are primarily, design, vulnerability assessments, capital plans, et cetera. We wanted to show how those could also be construction projects and funded through this program, the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. That being said, As you all are aware, we don't just fund construction projects, we can fund scoping and design, but we really wanted to show that pipeline again between the two programs. So in this round, funding was to support scoping, design planned through the Community Resilience Partnership, and implementation and construction. So applicants could request up to 50,000 to support scoping and design and 125,000 to support construction. So applicants were required to provide at least a 5% local match, and this local match requirement has to be raised or appropriated by the entity applying. Lirella will talk about this a little bit more, but essentially other grants can't cover that local match requirement. Again, it's reimbursement only, and these funds have 2 years to expend them. Most of the grant agreements were signed in 2024, so a lot of these projects will be wrapping up this year. Eligible projects for this round include scoping, design, and/or construction of specific public infrastructure, including stormwater, wastewater, drinking water, which were all also eligible in that first round, and working waterfronts or transportation infrastructure like roadways. So this round really opened it up to a bit more broader eligibility, whereas that first round was a bit more restrictive because it was U.S. Treasury funding, which had told us, we can only fund these three types of projects: drinking water, stormwater, wastewater. So to kind of move in here to some of the projects we're looking to highlight, the town of Fayette was awarded $125,000 for a stream crossing replacement on Fayette Corner Road. The existing undersized 48-inch HDPE culvert was replaced with a 13-foot span by 7-foot rise precast closed bottom concrete culvert designed following Stream Smart principles. Fayette Corner Road had previously flooded, causing road closure on 2 storm events, impacting commuters and local traffic. This box culvert is designed to pass a 100-year flood event and will greatly reduce public safety risk, mitigate flooding, and protect the crossing and road from the increasingly intense storms that we have been experiencing in Maine and will continue to experience. This project, as I had said, has been completed. The next project that I'm looking to highlight is Stonington. So Stonington was awarded $125,000 for their re-engineering, essentially to adjust for higher sea level rise, implementation, and construction. So Fayette was a construction project. Stonington is design and construction. So it's both. As originally proposed, this project was to raise a 400-foot section of Oceanville Road by 3 to 4 feet, creating a causeway projected to provide flood protection through 2050. Now this project is back with the engineer for redesign in the face of tidal rise and surges exceeding those projections. So the existing roadway is a one-way in, one-way out access for all residents and businesses. It's below elevation 8 at the lowest point and has for several years already been subject to flooding during storm events and astronomically high tides. So that section where that truck with the lobster traps are going through, that's the section that they're looking to raise. And then lastly, I want to highlight Harpswell. The town of Harpswell was awarded $50,000 for an engineering assessment on how to mitigate sea level rise impacts on a few different roadways in the town of Harpswell. Over the last 7 years, Dingley Island Causeway periodically overtopped. Overtopping, especially in freezing and thawing weather, breaks down the roadbed, as you're all familiar, and increases maintenance costs and shortens its lifespan. During the 2 January storms, both roadways were flooded and were impassable to residents trying to get to or from their homes and businesses. So this is just a design project, but the completion of the design enables the town to be ready when opportunities for construction funds become available, like this upcoming opportunity. And then on the map in the left, I just want to highlight we have a few other projects that have been completed. As I said, Fayette, Harpswell, but Mariahville has also been completed. Hollowell's been completed. Vienna has been completed as well. And most of these projects will be completed this year or may have a slight extension by a couple months. And then lastly, the third round of funding we had, which was also in 2024. So we had 2 rounds in 2024, one in 2022. And we had awarded $25.2 million in storm recovery grants to 39 communities across Maine to help them recover and rebuild from the devastating storms of December 2023 and January 2024. So we released this, I believe it was spring, summertime of 2024. And this round was primarily focused on the December 2023 and January 2024 storm events. So the scope was the same as before, to adapt critical infrastructure to the impacts of climate change. And project eligibility was also very similar to the previous round. Stormwater improvements, wastewater, drinking water, transportation resiliency projects. So it was very similar to that last round. The big difference here being the focus on the December 2023 and January 2024 storm events. And also in that first round in 2024, communities had to be part of the Community Resilience Partnership. In this round, they were not required to be a part of the Community Resilience Partnership. So just to kind of highlight the need from this round, overall, Maine DOT received 152 applications, asking for more than $118 million. We only had 25.2 to give. So we had received more than 5 times the number of applications compared to that previous round, which had happened at the beginning of 2024. That first round in 2024, we received 29 applications, whereas this round we received 152 applications. So as you know, you all are very much aware, as you most likely work in the municipalities who have potentially applied for funds here, but this is a very competitive program, and that's not to discourage anybody. Lirella will continue to talk about this, but just to let you know that we expect to be seeing at least 152 applications and potentially more in this upcoming round. And then 5% local match requirement, again, has to be raised or appropriated by the entity applying. This program is reimbursement only, and projects have 2 years to expend the funds. Quite a few of these projects will be wrapping up at the end of this year or the beginning of 2027, unless they've asked for an extension. And I will just note for reimbursement, by reimbursement, that means that the entity awarded will have to front the money. That doesn't mean the full amount. We typically have in the past done disbursements of 3. So that's based off of what is listed in the application. There'll be a section on, please provide a schedule, and you'll list roughly your schedule. And what we do is we pull milestones off of the schedule into the grant agreement, and then the disbursement requests are based off of 3 of the milestones in the application. So typically, for example, if it's a construction project, or if it's design and construction, we'd say first disbursement is after final design, second is halfway through construction, and third is when construction is completed. And Lirella will talk more about this as well, but we do have invoicing templates. We're here to help. Part of the reimbursement is you have to use our invoicing template and also have proof of payment and the invoice. But again, you're not fronting the full grant money. We do allow typically up to 3 disbursements, though we may increase that for this next round, and that would be defined in the grant agreement. So to talk about a few successful projects here, first is the Norridgewock Water District. The Norridgewock Water District was awarded a little over $1 million for the relocation of the water transmission main that conveys water from the well to the distribution system for the entire town of Norridgewock. The existing transmission main is mostly located on the north side of Upper Main Street. Along this section of Upper Main Street, the Kennebec River is very close to the road. In recent years, the embankment has started failing with several slumped areas, and this embankment slope failure becomes more severe with each storm and flooding of the Kennebec River. If the embankment continues to slide, it'll take the water main with it and cut off all public water service in Norridgewock, which serves 386 residential customer connections. I just want to highlight with this application that they had applied for construction-only funds, and they had secured easements ahead of applying for the grant and had provided the final design plan. So they were really demonstrating to us that they were ready to conduct construction when the grant agreement was executed, and they did just that. They were the first to sign the grant agreement and the first to complete their project for this grant round. So I just wanted to highlight that there. And then to move over to Medway. The town of Medway was awarded $177,650 for the design and construction of stormwater ditch on Libby Street. The stormwater ditch was washed out in October 2022. They received approximately 4 inches of rain in a 12-hour period. And during this heavy rainfall event, an enormous amount of water cut a trench in the ditch and across the property. Um, and then in some places, the trench was 6 feet deep and 12 feet wide. This is a huge risk to public safety and could potentially put a failure of the entire stormwater drainage system. And if it were to fail, it would shut down 116 and the immediate area. So no emergency vehicles, people couldn't get in or out. So this project consists of stormwater ditch and then also includes replacing 3 existing culverts with large diameter culverts to help accommodate the increase in the water flow. And then lastly, just going to highlight the town of Oxford. The town of Oxford was awarded $1,615,000 for the reconstruction of Rabbit Valley Road. The road washed out during the 2 storm events. This section of Rabbit Valley Road is responsible for the sediment buildup in Hogan Pond. Detour lengths would approximately be 7 miles. And this project included installing catch basins and storm drains in an enclosed drainage system, stone-lined ditches and plunge pools, hot mix asphalt base and surface paving, and curb installation on approximately 4,220 linear feet of Rabbit Valley Road. So the town's overall storm resiliency has greatly improved by upgrading this road and its drainage system. The recent roadway washout have created road closure and stranded abutted residents due to driveway washouts. Oxford is pretty much finished up. Medway is, I would say, about halfway through. And as I noted, North Rock Water District has completed. It may be too small, but on the left-hand side is all the projects in this round that we had awarded funding for. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Lirella to talk about what you all mostly care about, which is the upcoming funding opportunity, I just want to note, and Lirella will note this too, that we have recently updated our webpage to include a description on each grant program, but we're in the midst of working on ArcGIS story map that will highlight all the projects that we've funded. So folks will be able to go in and actually look and see the location, the amount, a description, which I think will give folks better ideas of projects that are funded through this program and what potential projects their entity could apply for. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lirella to describe the upcoming opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. Great. My name is Lirella, and I serve as a transportation planning specialist within the environmental office here at MaineDOT. And as Sierra stated, we are truly strive, we are vested in our efforts to serve all communities across Maine. To reiterate, the goal and purpose of the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, which is to enhance the climate resilience of existing infrastructure and provide public safety, has remained the same throughout all the rounds. The difference between the rounds is that in 2022 and now the 2026 program are made possible by federal funding. The 2026 program is funded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. This fund provides a one-time financial support to municipalities, tribes, and infrastructure districts to adapt their public infrastructure to climate change challenges such as sea level rise, increased flooding, and other related climate risks. Projects in these rounds are encouraged to use nature-based solutions when applicable throughout, but is not a requirement. Next slide, please. Now we're going to discuss the 7 main points of the upcoming opportunity, the 2026 Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund. To begin with, number 1, 13.8 million is anticipated to be awarded. Number 2, the award, like in previous round, will be on reimbursement only. Number 3, eligible activities to be awarded will include scoping and design of a project with an award of up to $75,000, construction of a project with an award of up to $3 million, and a combination of scoping, design, and construction of a project with an award of up to $3 million. Number 4, the 5% local a match is requested, and it could be cash or a built-in kind that must be raised and appropriated by the entity applying, and other grants cannot serve as the local match. Number 5, projects must be completed by September 30th of 2029. 6, the request for application, the RFA, and a frequently asked question sheet will open in late March of 2026 and stay open for 6 weeks. We have not yet developed the RFA, which includes the application process and other details as the project criteria for rating, but your questions are always helpful because it allows us to enhance the process and ultimately see how we can help and do our best to help all communities in climate resilient processes in Maine. And last but not least is the one that we get the most questions. Is my project eligible? So one thing that is not eligible is new construction of infrastructure. But here I put 5 good examples of eligible projects, but they're not limited to these. And just remember that it is encouraged to use nature-based solution when it's possible. So these 5 examples include transportation resilience projects like road elevations or relocation, like Sierra discussed in round 2 for Stonington. And then we have causeway improvements like Kennebunkport in round 1. Then we also have any upgrading, retrofitting, or relocating of an existing infrastructure to reduce risk from weather and climate impacts, and also adapting, upgrading stormwater or wastewater infrastructure treatment plants. And something that we hear a lot, that a lot of people ask, is replacing of stream crossing with MaineDOT 100-year flood standards that create and ensures habitat connectivity. And lastly, stabilization of shorelands with the use of biodegradable and vegetation materials. Here, for hard shorelines like seawalls, you must incorporate the hybrid green and gray materials. And overall, we are trying to ask you to, and we invite you to apply. If your public infrastructure is experiencing climate stressors and you can well document and substantiate this in the application, showing how the proposed project will eliminate, greatly reduce, or mitigate these climate stressors in tandem with the goals and purpose of the grant, we want to read your application. Next slide, please. So just for reference, I just put a very simple definition of what is a nature-based solution. The key aspect of a nature-based solution is just taking an action that works with nature. That's pretty much it. So instead of relying solely on great infrastructure upgrades, nature-based solutions integrate natural features such as marshes and dunes and mangroves and processes like river currents that adapt and enhances a property to mitigate climate change risks. So there are a broad application of nature-based solution. Here, I just put some examples for nature-based solution in stormwater, which are disconnecting impervious areas into green infrastructure, such as bioretention cells, establishing vegetated buffers like forests and meadows, incorporating porous pavement, and converting existing grass bottom detention basins to meadow vegetation. For more information on shoreline stabilization projects that must utilize that green and gray solution, we invite you to visit the Maine Department of environmental protection for our shore program. The website is in the bottom because they are really good in their explanations, so you can get further information on a project if that's something that you may have. Next slide, please. So this is a very tentative timeline. It's approximately 8 steps from the very beginning until the beginning of construction or scope or design. So the 8 steps starts with what happened in December 31st, 2025, which is that we put the notice out in our website. So that's what Sierra was saying. Please visit our website. Morgan put in the chat the link for our website. We are consistently upgrading it, so you can get a lot of information there. So the actual notice lives there. So that notice informs individuals about funding opportunities and encourage them just to start considering potential projects moving ahead. So then we move into late March of 2026, and that's when the RFA, the request for application, and the FAQ will go live. And then this will stay open for around 6 weeks. So we're talking sometime May of 2026. Then after that, we move into the scoring process, and that could take around 30 to 60 days to review hundreds of applications. We are invested in reading the application and giving everyone a fighting chance, but things do take time. So I will forecasting that perhaps by August of 2026, we will be able to be done, or before. But we're just kind of doing this timeline to give people an opportunity to understand the process. So then after that, conditional grantees undergo the NOAA environmental compliance, which is NEPA, and it could be other requirements, and that could take between 90 to 180 days. And there could be external factors like government shutdown that could happen, that this is pretty much out of our control. So we are giving some time into the process so that people are aware, and that could be November of 2026. Then after that, applicants are notified of award or non-award. That goes out in letters, and that could be January of 2027. So technically, the grant agreements will be issued sometime on or before Q1 of 2027. So then the projects will start moving, and then the recipients have until September 30th of 2029 to complete. As Sierra stated earlier, with the grant agreement, recipients receive detailed specifics of what is required. Nothing is hidden. You have to read the grant agreement. It's in there. It includes reporting, reimbursement requirements, all the milestones based on the schedule that you have proposed. So all that information lives in your grant agreement. But in previous round, Sierra and I we have created a step-by-step guide on reimbursement, so that people, sometimes it could be a little confusing. So it's like a detailed step-by-step of how to do the reimbursements. We also will provide you with templates for reporting, invoicing, submission, and any other templates for that is necessary. And we also send reminders before requirements are due. And we are always open to answering questions via email, phone, or video chat at any time. Like when you saw that picture of Nature Base with the Route Wide in Farmington, the town had invited us for a talk. So we went there. We really tried to the best of our ability to be proactive, going to meetings or taking phone calls. We really strive to do that. And last but not least, based on the 2022 MIAF requirements, which was federally funded, there was a quarterly report and a final report that is anticipated. So just for some people that were asking about reporting. Next slide, please. So now this is our contact information. Sarah and I are thrilled. It is just so wonderful to see so many communities interested in this grant opportunity. We are currently receiving a really high amount of emails with questions, and we are also processing quarterly reports, annual reports, as well as reimbursement invoices for over 80 communities that we are currently serving. So we appreciate your patience. Your question will be responded. We just want to let you know that it might take us around a week to get there, because we also have other responsibilities within the environmental office from electrical vehicles. There's a lot of stuff that Sierra and I do, but you are important to us. It's just that we are asking for a little bit of patience. That's it for me. Thank you. Now we're open to questions.
Yeah, thank you both so much. That's a great comprehensive overview and appreciate all of the information, especially ahead of the RFA, which I know folks are eager for, but this is really helpful to help folks proactively plan for what's to come. So thank you so much. We do have a lot of questions. We're just going to get right to them. And if we don't get to your question, we will get an answer for you and follow up. Yeah, let's just get going. So we have a question, which I think is a pretty simple one to answer. Are permitting and review costs eligible to include in the design construction phase?
Yes, they are.
Great. And then I think you addressed this but if you could clarify if there will be a scoring matrix as part of the RFA so applicants can understand just how and why or where to focus, how and why MDOT will be awarding the funds.
Yeah, Lirella kind of touched upon this,
Yeah.
but there will be a project rating criteria that we had also used in the previous round in that 2024 2.0 fund. So it'll break down we're basing it off of project rating goals, and then we have a criteria. We have not, as Lorella said, developed the RFA yet, so we don't exactly know that criteria, but we will put the the project rating criteria, which is the scoring, with the request for application.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We did have a couple of questions around what is eligible as local match and what is not. People are just sort of asking specifics. Is it like all grants? Is it so if you could clarify what local match is.
Sure. Yeah, hopefully I can clarify here. If you have a specific question like with your entity, like please feel free to reach out. But I guess to start, the 5% local match again has to be raised or appropriated from the entity applying. So it could be cash, and that can be through, a bond, putting out to vote, etc., or in kind. So folks can use in kind funds. So for the local match requirement, and then that 5% of the local match needs to be of the total project cost, not of the total grant amount. It's of the total project cost. And then I'll just add, we don't allow other grants because essentially we want to see that the entity applying has a stake in the game ultimately. 5% is fairly low in comparison to many other grant programs that, at DOT, some of our partnerships have 50-50 requirements. So 5% is fairly low for the requirement. And again, we just want to see that the municipality or the entity, infrastructure district, tribal community has a stake in the game. And for other grants, essentially saying like if you have a community action grant through the Community Resilience Partnership Program, that grant could not cover the 5% local match requirement. I'm not sure if that clarified. Hopefully it did. It is a question we receive fairly often, and I will note that, as I said at the beginning, Lirella and I also manage the Maine Public Working Waterfront Infrastructure Fund, and that request for application actually goes out at the end of this month, and that has a very detailed, like 7-page FAQ document, and we plan to do the exact same for this one as well.
Perfect.
The same
Thank you
thing
for.
for in-kind. We have a couple of communities, mostly in the municipal stream crossing that uses in-kind. So they use, some of them use like an Excel template, and they provide documentation of the hours of people working towards the in-kind. So that shows as the in-kind money that will go towards the local match.
Great. Thank you. A question about if, as part of the funding, can land be purchased? It says, can land be purchased to support project goals?
That's a good question. I guess I would need a little bit more detail. It has to be, publicly owned land. So I guess I'd be curious if this is private land that the town's looking to purchase to make it public, or I guess I just have a few questions. So I don't know if the person want to come off mute or just shoot us an email too.
Yeah, because we have another town that a resident donated the land and it became public land. So these are more specific questions, and I think that if that person can send us an email, it would be great.
Perfect. Thank you. Just a quick question around clarifying the difference between MIAF and then the Municipal Stream Crossing Grant.
That's a great question. So the Municipal Stream Crossing Program is just focused on stream crossing replacements. So only stream crossings, which could be culvert, minor span, bridge, we don't just call it culverts, are eligible. Whereas in this program, the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, it's a wide variety of applicants. So we're looking at wastewater infrastructure upgrades, stormwater improvements. We're looking at raising or moving roadways inland. Stream crossings are eligible as well for this round. In some previous rounds, it wasn't eligible, but they are eligible for this round. So I'd say the key difference is that for the municipal stream crossing program, it is only for stream crossing upgrades, or sorry, I should say stream crossing replacements. And that program does have to meet a 1.2 bankful width measurement or 100-year flood standards, and a few other requirements as well. I will just note that the municipal stream crossing program does not have funding at this time, unfortunately. So there is no funding available in that program.
Thanks for clarifying. So question about if projects can be a collaboration between a town and a water or sewer district. So for example, if the town owned a road, but the water sewer district owned the utility infrastructure.
So the purpose of the grant is to provide individual municipalities and tribes and infrastructure districts with the opportunity to adapt their critical infrastructure. However, this is something that perhaps that person can elaborate more, because that could be if it's, for example, like they said, an owner of a road between two roads, two communities. This kind of like needs to be evaluated case by case basis.
Yeah, that sounds like, yeah, Jana, if you want to follow up after, that would be great. And also I have the answer to your other question that you posed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so let's see. Next question. The cost to do the environmental review, is that cost to be paid by the applicant? It sounds like it's coming before folks are awarded. So I assume, is that covered by the grant, all of the NEPA costs, or is that going to be on the towns
Yeah, no, that will
or on
not
the
be on the
applicants?
town.
Okay.
The environmental compliance review is done by our NOAA project staff, by Ben Sweeney and Abby and a few other folks in the NOAA office. So that's their time that they're putting in on it. The town would not have to pay for anything. It's just that's a bit different in this round because NOAA does require environmental compliance review, essentially like a mini NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act review on all projects. So design projects will obviously be a bit quicker because there's no ground disturbance, you're not doing construction, but that will be at no cost to the entity applying. That's just part of the project requirement. So we'll come up with a list of projects that we'd like to do conditional awards for, and then we'll kick it to NOAA, and NOAA will review that list.
Thank you. And then a question about the type of road that's eligible for funding. If it's a state aid road versus a municipally owned road, are state aid roads eligible?
No, state aid isn't eligible. So with this grant round, private or state, which includes state aid, is not eligible for this opportunity.
Thanks for clarifying that. I think a lot of people are interested in knowing that.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good question, and something that we
Yeah.
probably should have noted when we put out the notice, in parentheses state aid as well, but we will
Mhm.
definitely include that in the FAQ and
Yes.
make it more clear in the request for application.
Great. And
Thank you.
we had a question about actually I'm gonna reach out to this person separately and ask that they follow up with you individually. I think it's a more specific question. I'll skip over that. So for combined scoping and design projects, can the budget for scoping and design exceed the 75,000?
Scoping and design is one thing. It's not separate. Sorry if
Oh,
that was
sorry,
confusing.
sorry. Let me
Sorry.
clarify. I meant
Oh,
Yeah.
scoping, design, and construction. Sorry. If it's all
oh,
part, can the scoping design portion exceed 75,000?
I mean, yes, we're only gonna, sorry, we're only, if you're applying for scoping, design, and construction, your total cannot exceed 3
3
million.
million.
So as long as it doesn't exceed 3 million, that's okay with us, if that
Okay.
is helpful. I hope I answered the question correctly.
And then it's just sort of a follow-up on timeline. 21 months it sounds like is the full timeline for all projects. I didn't do the monthly calculation, but
21 months. It's kind of like a year.
a year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of like a
Okay.
year.
Or,
Eh,
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like a year for us to get
Ye-
the
And
award letters and grant
yeah.
agreements executed, and then
Yeah.
they have until September 30th of 2029. So realistically, projects won't probably be able to start until spring of 2027.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, two
And then they have
years
till
roughly.
2029, 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
9/30/2029.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think as Lorella had very nicely noted, like it may seem like a very long process from when you submit your RFA to when you actually get the awards. And we hope that it can be quicker than that. But, reading 152 applications is pretty time consuming. And we also manage other grant programs. And I suspect we'll receive upwards of 100 applications for the Working Waterfront program. So we just want to do a thorough review. And then with the added environmental compliance review, which has never taken place in any previous round, we just want to be a little flexible in our estimates and try to be as realistic as possible. If things get done quicker, we'll move quicker. But I think what we had proposed is, trying to be as flexible as possible.
Okay. Um, let's see. A question. Can fish ladder improvement be part of a dam rehab and upgrade?
So dams, we have never encountered any requirements for dams. We never sponsor any dams. So we send that email to NOAA, and we are waiting for further guidance. A question was posed last week for us about removal of the dam. So if that person can also be more specific of what they want to do with the dam, not just upgrading, that will be very helpful to us, as NOAA is sending that question to their senior leadership for review.
Great.
So we're
Um,
trying to ask if these questions are to be as specific as possible, so
yeah,
that that's how we reply, as specific as possible.
great. Thank you. Um, and then these are a couple just sort of questions that folks have, if just you can provide some further clarification, especially if folks might not be so familiar with something. But like when we're talking about the nature-based solutions, can you just share like what does it mean when you say hybrid materials for shoreline stabilization?
Yeah, I think something that, and Lorella, please feel free to add here, just that we were thinking with shoreline stabilization is, using a mixture of riprap and potentially root wads or planting native seedlings to enforce the slope. So essentially, you're not going to go through and just put a bunch of riprap down. That's not what the purpose of the funds are. It's to have a combination. So we're not saying you need to only use root wads, like in the case of Farmington, but it could be a combination of that.
And that's what we ask if you can go to our shore program because they are pretty detailed on what materials. And so then the community can make an assessment of what works for them. Because that is something that is not required, but it is required for the seawall part of the shoreland.
Great. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
for
you.
any shoreline
Yeah.
stabilization project, nature-based solutions is required, but for all other projects, it is not, but it is encouraged if folks would like to do that and sees fit for their specific project.
Great, thank you. And just so folks know, we will include a lot of these resources that are being mentioned. Laura just put the Our Shore information in the chat, but we'll be providing some nature-based strategies information in our follow-up resource sheet. Question about the 5% match. We talked about the initial round related to the Community Resilience Partnership, and there being a decrease in the match requirement to 2.5%. Some folks wondering, is there going to be that option again this round, or is it just straight across 5%?
It is just straight across 5% this round.
Okay, great. Um, and then another question, again, in case someone might not be fully aware, like in kind, you mentioned Lirella sort of, tracking hours in kind, but can you just provide yet another explanation of what could be in kind match?
Y- Yeah, I think so labor, equipment, or materials. If the town has specific equipment that they could use or specific materials on site that they could use, that could count towards in kind. And then labor, so hours, as Lorella had said, really keeping track of the hours that a town official works on this specific project. So if that means writing the annual report or project management, etc., that can count towards in kind.
And documented, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Um, And then let's see, I think we're gonna do, well, I was gonna say I was gonna do one more question, but we want to make sure we're closing this out by noon. So I think we're gonna wrap up there. I apologize to folks whose questions we didn't get to. We are going to make sure we get them answered. We're gonna send a follow-up resource sheet with questions that got asked, responses, and of course, there's going to be the FAQ that Lorella and Sierra are putting out for this as well. But we'll try to get your answers. And for folks that have specific project questions, please do email Sierra and Lorella because that's how you'll hopefully get your questions answered. Before we close out, we want to launch a really short poll just to see if folks would be interested in a follow-up workshop about managing reimbursement grants and doing grant reporting. So if you are willing and could just take a second to complete that poll before we close out, that would be great. Just another quick reminder, we are recording this. We will send that out to you. So you have it as a resource along with the resource sheet, which, like I said, will have all of the information in terms of contacts and resource links, questions asked, summary of this presentation. All of that will be on the resource sheet that we send out. So we will also yeah, I think we'll also see if there's interest in this follow-up workshop, and we will let folks know. So yeah, we're just at time. I want to thank Sierra and Lorella again for all of their work and that they do ongoing, and then for giving their time to us today to help us prepare for this really exciting funding opportunity. So thanks, folks. Appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
Thank you
Have
so
a good day.
much.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.